Well, it's a modern-day David and Goliath story as the boys basketball team from this tiny private school out in Orleans is shooting to do the unthinkable and knock off juggernauts St. Peter's and St. Matthew's at this weekend's National Capital Invitational. As Principal Mike Karpishka tells it, this is one of those happy accidents, one of those stories that was just meant to be.
Well, last April I got a phone call from a gentleman that I couldn't really understand on the phone at first, and he was talking about placing some boys and you know, doing some basketball, and you know, he's carrying on, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't have a basketball team, I don't even have a gymnasium, and within about 10-15 minutes into the phone call, he realized he had called the wrong school.
The story began when Coach Ray Evans, who was living in the Bahamas at the time, was looking for a Christian school to send two of his star players. He Googled it, looking for a school in North Carolina. He found one in Orleans. Later in the conversation, though, he was offered a job as the athletic director here at the Christian Life Academy.
It was the persistence of Mr. Karpishka. You know, he would email me sometimes 3-4 times a day, and I'd open up my email account and I would see first thing on top of the list, Mike Karpishka.
If you've never heard of the LCA Saints before, don't worry. Neither had most of the opposition until the boys' basketball team went in and marched out with the Ashbury College Tournament Championship. Pretty impressive considering the school doesn't even have a gymnasium.
You know, it's the David and Goliath. We're a school, we've got 30 kids in high school. Half of our school is the basketball team. We don't have a gymnasium. This interview is being done at the YMCA because that's where the boys practice.
For Sun News, I'm Aidan Hellman.